Thank you for listening to another edition of the Business of Fun podcast. My guest today is the referral coach himself, Bill Cates. Like Gates with a C. And we are going to have a great conversation. Before I tell you about talking to Bill, though, I want to give you a few things to pay attention to for me. So do me that solid. Number one, I'm running a survey. The link is in the show notes. It's for people across the globe who are in the business of tickets, live entertainment. It'll take you about 3 or 4 minutes to complete. I'm going to put together a special report. I'm going to do a special webinar for people that fill this out, so you can ask questions and answers, the whole deal. If you help me fill it out, it would be great. I'm trying to get a statistically valid survey, which can also help me show you the importance of market research and what you can learn from market research. So help me out. Check the show notes or my social media feeds because I've been posting it, and your help would be great on this. Make sure you check out my website. It's davewakeman.com. And get the Talking Tickets newsletter. That's talkingtickets.substack.com. That will get you the newsletter. So do all that. So back to Bill. Bill Cates has a new book out called The Hidden Heist. And The Hidden Heist is a parable. So we talk about this, and it was a really interesting conversation because Bill has a unique perspective on selling and the ways that we can build relationships. He has something he calls the 3 R's: relevance, reputation, and referrals. Relevance being about value proposition. We got into things about attention and how it's hard to gain people's attention now, and so how it takes more focus and just more effort to achieve that these days. We talked about strategy versus tactics. We talked about big decisions. We talked about the importance of differentiation. That's something that you hear me talk about quite regularly. We talked about the power of business acumen and how it's a value add in the sales process. We talked about tangible versus intangible value, which is something I try to get across regularly as well. We talked about referrals. We talked about situational awareness, generational stereotypes, mistaken assumptions, and a whole lot more. This was a really good conversation. I think as you head into the end of the year or even the start of next year, which is 2026, listening to Bill and checking out The Hidden Heist is probably going to be something that would be very helpful to you. So I'm excited for you to hear my conversation with Bill Cates on the Business of Fun. All right, I would like to welcome Bill Cates to the Business of Fun. Bill, what's happening?
Hey, everything. Always busy. And by the way, you didn't mispronounce it, but some people think, how in the heck did Dave get Bill Gates on the show? So just so you know, it's Cates with a C. I missed it by one letter and a couple of bucks.
Yeah, well, if you put me, you, and Bill Gates in a room, we would be doing all right for ourselves.
Yeah, we would.
We'd have a little bit of cash. All right, so let's do this because you sent me this great book that I'm holding up and nobody will see it because I don't do video on this thing called The Hidden Heist.
Yes, sir.
Stop robbing yourself of lasting wealth. That's going to be the we're going to get into that, but I wanted to plug it at the start because I really enjoyed it because there's lots of diagrams and lots of useful stuff. But where I want to start today, if I can, is I want to talk about this because it's also free. It's a way for people to introduce themselves to you and your work. The 3 R's, and that 3 R's report that you had, the download. Yeah. And it's relevance, reputation, and referrals. Can you explain where the 3 R's came from?
Yeah, and if anybody wants to get that report, it's free. Just go to exponentialgrowthguide.com, and you get this. So what we know is that, with the proliferation of digital marketing and all that, it's easy to get your message broadcast, but it's not easy to get your message paid attention to. And so how do we cut through all that? And with a lot of businesses I work with, it still is the human part of it. It's I call it relationship marketing. And again, with most of the businesses I work with, the digital side can work, lead programs can work, all of that, but that's usually a small percentage. And most of the highest end clients are still coming through the human touch in some form or another. It could be referrals, so I'll get to the 3 R's. The first one is relevance. You got to have a relevant messaging. You got to have a relevant way to talk about what your brand and your message. I make the distinction between strategic relevance and tactical relevance. Look, if you're not relevant, you'll be ignored. All right. So no one wants to be ignored. The second one is reputation, and that is, how do you build a reputation among your tribe, among your ideal clients, whatever that community, tribe, ideal market looks like. How to build a reputation. So we're not just prospecting, but we're marketing. We're drawing people towards us. Prospecting never goes away. It's always a piece of the puzzle. But what if we could, attract more? And then the last one is referrals, which I've been known for the last 30 years plus. How to multiply your best clients or customers, and not just word of mouth and get them talking about you, which is good and it certainly has its place, but it's how to get connections, how to get introduced to these folks. So this willingness to refer actually is meaningful and turns into something actionable. So any one of these strategies, relevance, reputation, referrals, will increase your business, your sales, your acquisition. You start to put 2 or 3 together, they start to talk to each other. And I like to say that's how you go from incremental growth to exponential growth.
Yep.
Hence the guide's title. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very important lesson, right? Which is that it doesn't take a million people to know you to make a big change. It's just like having one person talk to another and just kind of creating these sort of network effects for your referrals and networking and your marketing. Because there's a formula that I teach my students, which is A plus B is greater than 2A or 2B. And that just means that, like, when you start combining methods, you start making connections, the things start growing exponentially. It's better than just doubling down on, like you said, like some of these tactical things, which brings me back to something that caught my attention that you just talked about, which is like the 2 different kinds of relevance, which is strategic relevance versus tactical relevance. A phrase that people know me for, and they even repeat it to me when they see me, is like strategy before tactics.
Right.
Can you explain the strategic relevance versus the tactical relevance for everybody?
Yes, and then when I do that, after I do that, remind me to talk to you about what actually supersedes strategy and tactics.
Okay.
But let's get to that first. So when it comes to relevance, strategic relevance, that's kind of the big decisions, meaning what is your ideal client or clients or customers? What is the persona, the avatar? What is the target market? What is your who? Big important decisions. And then what makes you different? Your differentiation. A lot of firms struggle with that. Is differentiation critical? It depends on the business. I've found there's some businesses where it's more important than others. But we still need to know it. We still need to answer the question, what makes you different than the other guy I'm talking to? And so these are the kind of the bigger questions we have to answer. And then the tactical relevance is the implementation of that. So I have some formulas that I teach in the book, Radical Relevance, where I have a differentiation gap formula. I have a value positioning statement formula. It's all to how to talk about what you do and how to fill in that formula and be very tactical. So I'm a bit of a wordsmith. So I like to help people come up with the right words for them and their personality and their industry. But there's some formulas that you can use that really facilitate that process. So that's kind of differentiation. Can I get back to the something that's actually a little more important than those 2?
Please do, and then I'll come back to differentiation.
All right, good. So what's more important, and I love talking about strategies and tactics. I'm a tactician. I love it. And principles and beliefs supersede all of those, because when you know the principle of what you're trying to accomplish, let me give you an example. In the referral side of things, you've got to be referable. Right? If you're not referable, then, all the strategies and tactics to get more referrals are not going to help, or you got to have strategies in place to become more referable. When it comes to branding, one of the principles is Larger, wider is not necessarily better. Narrower is usually better when it comes to articulating your value. So these are kind of the principles at hand. And I found that when I teach people the principles, then they can kind of, even if I'm not there to help, they can come up with some of the strategies and tactics around that. So that's kind of, and in the book, I give the principles as well as the strategies and the tactics.
So thank you, because now because that makes a lot of sense, especially the idea of the branding, larger and wider, not necessarily always being better. Because one of the things, I think that like any good branding expert would tell you is that like you can expand later, but you have to be specific to start with. And so I think that's an important lesson for people. But I want to touch on this differentiation idea, right? Because you said some businesses don't necessarily need to focus on differentiation. And my belief has always been that nobody's destined to be a commodity. So I'm kind of curious how you come to that, that point of view.
Yeah, again, it depends a lot on the business, and not only the business, it depends on who you're talking to. So, example, a lot of the folks I work with are financial professionals.
Okay.
A lot of competition. There's a lot of financial professionals out there. Sure. Now, does the potential client of a financial professional care if what makes that advisor different, or do they care if that advisor is right for them? And at the end of the day, that's the ultimate, is right. Are you right for me?
Right.
And in my book, Radical Relevance, I'd say that only differences that matter. Meaning, if you have something you use as a differentiation that you think makes you different, or maybe you even know makes you different, but it doesn't matter to the prospect if they can't discern the benefit of that, then it's a difference that doesn't matter. So now, if you're again back to the advisor, if you're talking with someone who is interviewing more than one firms for the possibility of their wealth management and financial planning, well, then you better have a way to talk about what makes you a little bit different. If you're going to an influencer, a center of influencer in financial services, it could be accountants, it could be attorneys in their world. They want to know what makes you different, because they want to know who to recommend to you, who's the right person, to make them the right match. But when you're sitting in front of a prospect, sometimes the difference doesn't matter. What really matters is your empathy for their situation and your willingness to get to know their situation, and then talk about what you do in a way that's a mirror to their situation. In marketing and branding and sales, the key word is empathy. And here's the metaphor I like to use. When you're talking about your value, are you doing it in a way that you're holding up a mirror to that person who's listening to your value, where they see themselves in how you describe what you do? If they're seeing themselves as they say, this person gets me, they get us, they get my industry, they get my world, they get my challenges, they get my that's going to supersede any little nuance of what makes you different.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I have this right, because I think that what you're telling me is that it's not so much that differentiation doesn't matter in every situation. It does, but the most important two things to be in, and goes back to the book, I think, is the relevance of your message,
clearly, and
how much you pay attention to your customer, which is like a marketing 101 thing that gets like swept under the rug right away, is that like you gotta be focused on the customer. And how I put it is my opinion doesn't matter. It's what's important to you, not me.
Yeah, and I would say your opinion does matter, but it comes in later.
I tell people my opinion's irrelevant.
Well, initially, perhaps. So yeah, I mean, and that's the essence of what is radical relevance. Radical relevance is knowing your market, knowing your customer or client so well that how you talk about your value, they see that, they get that. The questions you ask them demonstrate a knowingness of their world. So another example, I was talking with a sales manager a while ago, and I asked them, I said, are your folks facing this problem? And he said, "Were you in our sales meeting this morning? Were you like listening to what we were talking about?" So now I knew I asked a good question, right? Because it was a good question that would help me learn about him and his situation. So that's good. But it showed a demonstrated my knowingness.
Mhm.
So what I do know and what I do care about actually does matter. I'll push back on you a little bit. I need to demonstrate that, but I demonstrate it in a way that I'm getting to know them first.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so that's kind of a back and forth dance, really.
Yeah, I think we see it the same way. And when I
Yeah.
say tell people I'm irrelevant, it's because I don't want to start with like, let me, because what happens for often when I'm dealing with like marketing folks and branding people is that they feel like they have to have like some magical insight into people. And I was like, well, no, you just talk to them and they'll tell you what's going on. And then you will develop an opinion that matters. But just from at the starting point, you aren't the best source because you're too close to what you're trying to solve. You have to figure out what is important to them because you could be missing the mark. So I think it's the same way. It's just the framing is different, which, I think is helpful because it helps people like that kind of friction between our ideas helps people understand a little more. I
Yes.
think.
I
Okay.
agree. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it's not that either one of us we're coming at it from different angles to get to the same point. And I think that's helpful for people to see. So let me ask you about the idea of your reputation then, because I think a lot of times, like salespeople, they feel like they, they have to work for the right brand, I guess would be the way that it would come across to in a lot of conversations. And I think that what you're talking about though is like, as an individual, you have a reputation that you need to manage, and that will help you gain referrals and maintain your relevance. Am I off, or is that correct?
Well, that's part of it. But what I mean a little more so than reputation is not reputation of good standing and honesty and trustworthiness and fix the problems. Well, that's all important. Don't get me wrong, it is. What I'm talking about is getting known within a narrow niche, getting known within a tribe, community, target market, whatever it may be. Not trying to be all things to all people, but being the go-to person or the go-to firm in a specific target market. And you can have more than one target market, but when you narrow your focus and you get to know that world so well that you then start to develop the reputation as the go-to source or resource for them. So that's kind of what I mean is building that reputation as the go-to resource that then acts like a magnet and starts to attract people towards you.
And where do people get sort of jammed up on that? Because I know for certain that that's a tough thing for a lot of salespeople to come up with, right? This idea of being some sort of go-to resource. I often tell people, especially if I'm talking to salespeople, I go, one of the key things that's going to differentiate you from all the other people selling, the same thing or something similar is your level of business acumen. And that's a way to strengthen your reputation because you're helping, like, not just solve, like you said, good standing, fix the problem, do all this. Those are table stakes. You're able to add value in the sales process, which I think is like important and unique. But again, maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. And that goes back to narrowing our focus. The narrower the focus, the clearer we are in who we're trying to attract and who we serve the best. Then everything we do becomes more relevant, more impactful, more compelling, and moves people along. And the problem is, so here's some mistakes that some people make. A classic marketing mistake is when someone's developing a website or some marketing material, LinkedIn profile, whatever. They're thinking, well, I don't want to leave these people out, and I don't want to leave these people out, and I want to get you. So they start to make their net larger to try to catch more opportunity. But the truth is it waters down the message so you catch no one. It's like more holes in the net. So you're better off having one or two or three clear target markets and having messaging specific for each market. So that's a mistake. One of the concerns or fears that come up with people around narrowing their focus is if I just focus on this group, this community, this industry, this type of business, whatever, aren't I going to lose all this other opportunity? And the answer is, yeah, you might, but you'll be so successful in this target market, you won't even notice, you won't even care. Most of the people that I've coached and worked with and have interviewed always say, yeah, I wish I had narrowed my market sooner. I wish I had done it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah, it seems counterintuitive to some degree. You think, well, I want to cast as wide a net as possible so I can catch every possible Yeah, but your messaging is going to be very weak, and you're not going to be saying the right things and asking the right questions that will show that knowingness and hold up that mirror to them and create that empathy. And people want to know, people want to go and work with people who get them. That sense of commonality is critical. And when you expand your market too far, if you're not careful, if you don't do it right, then you're going to lose that.
Absolutely. And that is, you said it in a nice way, which was where I talk about targeting from a marketing standpoint, because I think most people, they haven't necessarily, it seems like they have not spent enough time on understanding what variables cause people to buy what they're selling. And because of that, then they think they have to get wider and wider because they don't know what's really causing the buying action to take place. And the way I tell them, it's probably something similar to how it sounds like you come across, which is like, I'm afraid to narrow it down, but the thing is, because I'm losing out on this opportunity. But I go, if you get really specific, you'd see how little of that market that you're narrowed down to that you actually have, and you'd see how many opportunities there are.
Yeah.
And so you were talking about mistakes, and I thought that was pretty this example you used was really pretty helpful for people. What are some of the other mistakes that people make
in terms of target market, or
in terms of like building their reputation, targeting the right opportunities, kind of building out their business?
Yeah. So, well, like I said, making sure that your differentiation is matter. All right. So here's one of the big mistakes, and this is classic. This is going to sound like sales marketing 101, but even I need to be reminded of this myself from time to time, or remind my team members, and that is the classic: features, advantages, benefits. And most people, when they talk about their value, they talk about features, they occasionally go to the advantages, but they rarely go to the final benefits. And so how do you know if you're talking in terms of benefits? Well, you're saying things like what that means to you is, or how that might look for you is, but there's one more step that almost nobody does. And that is the impact of the benefit. So when we talk about, we offer this, and here's the advantage it provides for you, and here's how I believe you will benefit. That's good. But the next step is, how do you see that playing out in your world? Or what do you think the impact to your business would be? What do you think the impact to you, not just your business, but you might be? So you're getting people to think about and talk about and live into the impact of the benefit. So now the benefit becomes more real to them. It's not just a generic kind of, okay, I get it. But they can actually start to see how it plays out in their world.
Right.
And so few people go there. Maybe they weren't taught, maybe they don't feel comfortable asking the question, but that's what will make the difference. When you talk about your value and you talk about the benefits, and then you get your prospects to try on the benefit, that's what'll make the difference.
Yeah, it helped me if I'm off base here.
Yeah.
You're talking about people get stuck on the inputs. They might, if they're doing okay, get to the outputs, but to really win, they got to get to the value. And one thing that I see people struggle with is the understanding that value can come in many forms, tangible and intangible. And like, it's a lot of times that intangible stuff is way more important and way more impactful than even some of the tangible things. But I'd be curious, like, is that your experience as well?
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you want to get people to vision. So I'll give you an example from my own world. I was just before this call, I was on the call with a gentleman who was interested in consulting, my consulting for his firm, and we talked about his situation. I gave him a few ideas just to provide some value along the way, even if we didn't work together. Um, we started to talk a little bit about the ROI of what that might represent to him, and then I said, so if we did work together, what would success look like? How would being better at these things, having everybody on the same page, talking about your value, articulating your value more effectively, being able to multiply your best clients. I often say when I'm asking a question that kind of feels like a setup, but I'm not trying to set him up. I really want to know how
Yeah.
he would visit. I said, I'll often say, I could guess, I could have a sense of the impact,
Mhm.
but I'd like to hear from you because I want to make sure I'm on track. So I always make sure it doesn't sound like a setup in that, and that's getting people to envision and think and feel the result of working with you, whatever that may be. It could be a transaction, it could be a big
Mhm.
service, it could really be
Mhm.
anything. But what is that small or little or large transformation going to feel
Yeah.
like to them? And now they're starting to own the transformation.
Yeah. They have to feel it, right? It
Yes.
can't just be theoretical. It has to be emotional. It
Yeah.
has to be definitely emotional. All
Yeah.
right. So let's get to that last R, the referrals, because I have told people that these are like God's gift to your sales process, because a lot of times, like, you get a warm introduction or even like a moderately warm introduction. It elevates your opportunities to have conversations, right? And people come to
Yes.
it with like a little less resistance. Um,
Sure.
how do you approach referrals?
Yeah. So the first of all, the principle behind it is borrowed trust. We borrow the trust in one relationship long enough to earn our own trust in a new relationship. And as you alluded to, everything gets easier to reach people, more likely to take your call, set up a call, more likely to follow your recommendations because their friend or colleague followed your recommendations. So that borrowed trust makes any part of your sales process, whatever your sales process looks like, makes it work better because people are coming in at a higher level of trust. Uh, I have kind of a process I teach around that, and it hovers around three words that really, when you work them together, it can really truly create a continual flow of good quality clients or customers coming through referrals. So the first part is, I'll call it engagement or being referable. You've got to have those engaged clients. They've got to feel good about your value. They got to feel good
Mhm.
about you and the work you do. Uh, you are becoming referable. Then leverage. There are different ways to promote and ask for referrals. Um, so now we're starting to leverage that referability. When people
Right.
you're referable when value is delivered, value is recognized. And so how do you figure that out? And then how do you leverage that? And then the third is connection or introduction. I strongly encourage everybody listening that if you're going to talk to clients or customers or anyone about multiplying your best clients, about referrals, use the word that represents what you really need, which is an introduction. So you want to get introduced, so use the word that represents what you really want, because while word of mouth is nice, we like people talking about us. For most businesses, that's not enough. We got to get connected. So use connection, use introductions. So if you get introduced, connected in a good, strong way, and you start to develop these principles of engagement and become more referable, and then you leverage that wheel of engagement, leverage, connection, engagement, leverage, it just keeps turning. Uh, Referrals for virtually every business that I've ever worked with should not be seen as icing on the cake. They're not an afterthought. They're not a bonus. They are the cake. In most businesses, not all, but in most
Right.
businesses, that's how your ideal clients want to meet you. So build a business based on how people want to meet you. And that's relevance, because the fastest way to become relevant, to bring these together, to someone who doesn't know you, is through an introduction to someone they do know and trust.
Mhm.
And so that's how everything just gets easier and easier.
So there's two parts of the book, your new book, The Hidden Heist, that I wanted to touch on really quickly before while I have you.
Yes.
The first one is about, and I'm going to you misguided stereotypes. That was the phrase I starred.
Okay.
And, stereotypes are, to me, lazy thinking, right? I mean, every stereotype is built a little bit out of maybe some kernel of truth.
Yes.
But I think if you wave your magic wand and just assume that all the stereotypes are true, it's going to hurt your sales process. So first thing I want to ask you is about the stereotypes, and like, how do you fight against like letting those things kind of like control your sales process? And so I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So
because I think that's helpful.
Yeah. So the Hidden Heist is, by the way, just so people know, it's a parable. It's a storybook. It takes place in a bank robbery. And in the middle of this bank robbery, while these kind of bumbly robbers, a little bit of tension, but a lot of humor, are trying to figure out how to get out of this predicament, the others are gathered in the vault and they're learning about money. And that's where all this comes up in the Hidden Heist. And so one of the stereotypes that gets brought up is rich people are greedy and dishonest, or money will change you. That's a mistaken belief that money will change you for the worst. And you're right. These stereotypes are often based on some truth, some evidence. But my co-author, Jeff C. West, actually, and he put these words in the main character, Alden Beckett, of the book. And I just love this, and I use this all the time. Now, so when if we're talking about, rich people, greedy, dishonest, selfish, whatever, some are, most aren't. And so one thing that I've always hated, I always bristle when people make these gross generalizations about any population of anyone. We flip it also in the book. In the Hidden Heist, we also, poor people are lazy. Poor people don't care. Well, yeah, some are. Most aren't. Most are actually working quite hard, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs to support themselves, their family, et cetera, et cetera. So, just knowing that that's a belief, that we have this belief that colors our perception. All right, so this is important. This is the whole reason I wrote the book, The Hidden Heist, which I think will serve any salesperson, any marketer, any business person, any human being. All right. Now, talk about a target market. Okay. Maybe not.
We got to narrow a little bit.
Yeah. To Homo sapiens. We're narrowing it to Homo sapiens. When you've got a challenge, you've got something that's not working. Maybe it's a business, the sales are down, or maybe it's a relationship with a partner, whatever it is. We usually go to, all right, what strategy do we apply? What should I say? Meaning tactic. Okay, that's fine. But I got to tell you, sometimes there's a belief running. You got a belief running about yourself, about the situation, about the other people, about the industry, about the economy, about your product, about whatever. You got a belief that's narrowing your ability to see the right strategy. We are human, so we have limiting beliefs. We have mistaken assumptions. And so what I want to encourage people is when you get stuck and you're trying to figure out how to improve something or fix a problem, maybe take a time out for a second and say, all right, what am I believing about myself, about the other people, about the situation that's limiting my ability to see the answers, to see the right strategy or the tactics. So we just apply in the Hidden Heist, we apply that to money. And everybody's broken money stories, because everybody's money story, or most people, is broken unless they work on it. And so that's kind of the overarching dynamic of what's going on there.
And that limiting beliefs was actually the second thing I wanted to touch on, because I think that the combination of stereotypes and limiting beliefs holds back a lot of the salespeople that I encounter.
Yeah.
And it probably just holds back most salespeople in general. Because then it makes it harder to ask for referrals. You don't manage your reputation as well as you should, or you don't create the reputation that you need to and deserve to have. And if you have too many limiting beliefs and stereotypes, at least to me, it limits your relevance. Because the thing is, it's like you don't talk to the people you should be talking to, or you don't talk to people because you think Yeah.
Possible. Yeah.
You think they don't have any, you put your something irrelevant on them, I think is be the way I put it.
Well, you put a mistaken assumption.
Yeah.
It becomes an impediment. So let me give you two examples, one from the book and one around referrals. So this I've done about 100 money interviews, and all the characters in the Hidden Heist are based on real people, real police officers, SWAT officers. We've interviewed bank robbery hostages. We interviewed a hostage negotiator. So there's a lot of real life in this book that also teaches some money lessons. And so this belief that this resentment that a lot of people have around people with a lot of money. So I was interviewing this guy, Michael, and he got that from his dad. His dad resented people with money. And we form our money stories when we're around age 7 or 8 is when most of us form our money stories. So if you grow up with this belief that, money is people with a lot of money are greedy and evil and dishonest and you resent them, you can't become someone you resent. Cognitive dissonance kicks in and you can't achieve what you resent. And it could be on an unconscious level. You don't even realize it's working against you. So that's one place where that has to do, with salespeople. But on referrals, a lot of people don't like to ask for referrals because they don't want to come across as needy. They mistakenly think that asking for referrals or introductions will put them in a needy position. In fact, the people that come to me for coaching, I call them the 3 Disney characters. They say, Bill, I want to get more proactive. I want to get my team more proactive with this, but I don't want to look like cheesy, sleazy, and creepy. Right. And so they think that asking for introductions will make them look like that. Well, mistaken assumption out of ignorance. And so it limits their behavior and limits their results.
Yeah. I tell people, like, look, you're asking for a referral because you know that you've given somebody some great value and you think that there's somebody else that deserves that value that you can help give value to. I frame it as like, it's a gift. The referral you're giving people a gift, but that's me. Bill, where can people find you on the internet? Because I would definitely tell them to get both of these books, The Hidden Heist and Radical Relevance. I have them sitting next to me right now.
Thank you.
And I think they both had they worked well together. I guess would be the way I would put it.
Thank you. Yeah, and by the way, some teams now, sales teams, are using the Hidden Heist as kind of a catalyst to uncover members of the sales team or whatever the team you're working with, their limiting beliefs and mistaken assumptions and all that unhelpful emotions around money. And so it's a tool that could be used in the workplace in that regard. But anyway, for the books, The Hidden Heist and Radical Relevance, if you just go to Amazon, you're going to find them. Or search Bill Cates, Cates on Amazon, you'll find the books. And then I'm on LinkedIn. Probably the best place is to look for Bill Cates on LinkedIn. I show up easily. I've been at this for a long time. And then connect and send me a message, and we can start a conversation if you want. I would love to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Bill.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you.
Do me a favor and let me know what you thought of my conversation with Bill Cates by sending me an email to my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. You can check out my website. It's davewakeman.com. Get the Talking Tickets newsletter, which is designed specifically for people in live entertainment and sports business, tickets, all of those things where people go to have fun by visiting talkingtickets.substack.com. Again, since I stuttered, talkingtickets.substack.com, and couldn't get that whole thing out in one mouthful because not enough water or coffee this morning. And finally, check out the survey. The link to it is in the show notes. It is a global survey of people who are in the business of tickets, sports, live entertainment, anything that has to do with fun. It will help me create better content for this podcast, also in the Talking Tickets newsletter. And it will also give me the ability to help teach you about the importance of proper market research. So I'm trying to get to a statistically relevant number of survey responses. I'm getting very, very close, but the ultimate goal is to get about 400. So check it out, share it with your friends and colleagues. It does me a great deal of favor. As always, I want to thank you for listening. Do me a favor if you dug this episode with Bill Cates, which if you made it to 40 minutes plus here, I'm certain you do. Share it with your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers. Rate it and review it. Subscribe. All of these things help me reach more people, get better guests, and do better work for you. So until next time, thank you so much for listening, and take it easy.